So at this point, I'm willing to bet everybody's seen the big announcement that Sony is going to be putting out the Sony PlayStation Classic. It's due out December 3rd, it's going to retail for $99.99, and it's going to include 20 preloaded games. Now for me personally, I own pretty much most of the PS1 games that I want to play, so this isn't really something I'm going to run out and grab, especially not for $100. But it's good, I think, as an entry-level thing for other people that aren't as familiar with the original PlayStation. So for me, the original PlayStation is one of my favorite consoles. I mean, outside of the Super Nintendo, it was one of my favorite consoles to play RPGs on. And there are a lot of great games on there, both RPG and non-RPG. There's so many good platformers and action games and racing games. There's something for everybody. It's a great console. The look of it these days, though, comes across as a bit dated, with the stretched out, kind of blurry textures and whatnot. So, I mean, even playing that through HDMI, it's not going to look fantastic. I mean, you can see what the games look like in the trailer, and I mean, you can definitely, you know, relive your memories of playing these games the way they originally looked, but it's not going to compare to what kids are used to these days. I think this is going to primarily be something that appeals to people in their early to mid 30s who were, you know, kids or teenagers when the original came out. But we'll see. You know, like, I wasn't sure how well the Nintendo Classic or, you know, the Super Nintendo Classic were going to do, and those things sold like gangbusters, so I'm willing to bet this is going to be at least on par with that, barring some unforeseen technical problems. Okay, so of the 20 games that are going to be preloaded on the console, they've only showed us what 5 of them are going to be. There's Final Fantasy VII, Wild Arms, Jumping Flash, Tekken 3, and Ridge Racer Type 4. I'm just going to take a wild stab at 15 games that I think could fill in the blank slates there, based on what I know was popular for the system at the time. So we're going to start off with pretty much any of the Crash Bandicoot games. Now I know that they just recently came out with the Crash Insane Trilogy, so I'm thinking they're probably not going to include all of the Crash Bandicoot games. They'll probably just pick one that's either was the bestseller or that is overall representative of the entire series that was on the original PlayStation. Next up, we've got Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This one seems kind of like a no-brainer. It's a ridiculously popular game, and it's one of those that's gone up in value over time, so a lot of people would like to be able to have that. Any of the Tomb Raider games, that seems like a no-brainer, because they're still making Tomb Raider games, and it's still ridiculously popular. So any of those games would be good. Twisted Metal, that's one that there's at least 4 games maybe? Let's see, there was 1 through 3, there was a 4, and then there was like Small Brawl, I think was another one, so maybe there's 5 altogether. Spyro. There's at least 3 Spyro games on the original system, although I'm not sure how many platformers they're going to want to put on there. Parappa the Rappa is also a game that you don't come across as often out in the wild. I don't know how expensive it is. I don't own a copy of it myself, but I know that it was popular with other people at the time that it came out, so that would make a lot of sense. Any of the series of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. That was a very ridiculously popular series that all of my friends played. So, and I think there was at least 4 of those on the original PlayStation. Next up, Metal Gear Solid. Probably the first game, if they're going to put any of them on there, I would think anyway. Next up, I would say Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. Most people probably would consider that more of the beginning of the overall Legacy of Kain series, even though there was a game before that. This was the really popular one, the one that really set it off to become what it would be on the PS2. Let's see, coming up next we've got Gran Turismo, because you have to have some racing games. Like I was saying earlier, you want that varied gameplay experience, and that was a popular series. And then, of course, you're going to need to at least have one of the Resident Evils or possibly Silent Hill. I don't think they're going to do both. Judging by popularity, I would say probably one of the Resident Evils. Either a Gex or a Rayman. I put Gex/Rayman just because I think more platformers is good. Gex obviously originated on the 3DO and then was ported to the PlayStation, where it took off and then became like a series. So I think that one would be a safe bet, possibly. Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. That's a pretty unique game that shows off, you know, more of what the system can do. It's not all fighting games and RPGs and platformers. Medieval. That's one of my favorites for the system, and I think that one would be a pretty good selection for this, just to mix things up. They got the Siphon Filter series, so probably one of those would be a good choice. And then I see a lot of people online commenting about Dino Crisis. So that's a possibility. Now that's 16 that I've listed all together, so I'm not going to be right about all of them, but I'm willing to bet at least half of these are going to be on there. And then they might try to, you know, like pad the thing out with some sports titles or something like that. It's going to be interesting to see if this system is going to be hackable and expandable the way that the Nintendo Classics have been. I know a lot of people have been complaining about the lack of the analog controllers for certain games, so I'm willing to bet that at a later date that the console comes out, they're probably going to be selling those separately. Just the way Nintendo sold additional controllers and extension cables for the controllers. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Probably not going to be any games that were light gun games, just because this console is going to be, from what I've seen, from what they've shown, HDMI out only, so it's not going to be compatible with any CRT televisions. So light gun games are pretty much out. And that's it. As I said, due December 3rd, $99.99. I'm going to play the waiting game on this. I'm going to see what the reviews are, what people have to say about their experiences. Like I said, I've got so many PS1 games at this point that I don't really need to run out and try it unless there's some really cool, unique things that you can do with it that you can't get from just playing through, you know, your PS3 or something like that, because that's still a viable option for playing slightly nicer looking versions of your existing PS1 games. So just throwing an HDMI out on the console isn't necessarily a selling point for me. So yeah, we'll see how it goes, and thanks for watching.